Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is, what does it take to spark activism? What does it take to move us out of our inertia into action? And when we take that action, how do we do it in such a way that it actually elevates the frequency of the issue rather than just embedding the problem more deeply? So it should be an interesting conversation. Before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together, vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Rosalind. Good morning to everybody else who's joining us. It's great to have you here with us today. So we're looking at, what does it take to spark activism? With so many injustices in the world, there's so many things that that are calling for attention, that are calling for change and transformation. And I'm wondering, what is it that actually has us move out of the inertia of complaint, or bemoaning a certain circumstance, into a place of action? And in addition to that, how can we make that action be in service to something greater rather than something that ends up perpetuating the same problem? So, for instance, when we look at government, right, we essentially are exchanging one party for another, and the foundational problems, so to speak, persist, right? That we're just dealing with problems in a whack-a-mole kind of situation, but the foundational flaws in the system persist. Typically, it's just one point of view supplants another, and the winner becomes, just sort of fills the shoes of the displaced party in so many ways. And so what we're looking at is how to create a reordering and a higher order of, hopefully, of being, and hopefully of awareness. Hopefully what we're doing is we are we are elevating the field. Let's just talk about that. We're elevating the frequency, that we're making an improvement, hopefully, that is foundational, that is actually not just change, but is transformation, that sort of is moving things into a higher dimension of one sort or another. And so this conversation comes from a conversation with a client who has been engaged in a well, okay, I'm going to say a fight against an organization that was or is very, very deeply steeped in discriminatory practice. And this person is in a unique position to be able to call this organization to task and to really require them to face the consequences of their egregious actions. And it's taken a tremendous effort, mentally, emotionally, physically, incredible amount of time and determination and commitment to put together this dismantling, this objection or whatever, that actually dismantles the structures of the organization that are holding this discriminatory practice in place. And it's actually such a fascinating process to be recognizing how structures of power operate, to be dissecting that and recognizing how power enforces itself and what the expectations are. And this is a gender-based thing. And if we look at the gender norms of power in our society, it's really, really, really interesting how men, when they're assertive, are considered strong, and women, when they're assertive, are considered aggressive or confrontational, combative, disruptive, and that as women, we are expected and told essentially to be polite, to be compliant, to smile, to be to play upon emotion, to be the damsel in distress, to stay in line, to not show our teeth, to not fight, to not snarl. Because if we do that, we're not tough. We're dismissed. And there are all kinds of nasty words that that are used to characterize us when we actually speak up, when we don't comply. And it's very, very interesting when men don't comply. That's they're tough, right? Or they have conviction, or there's a certain level of respect for that. Whereas with women, it becomes a negative trait, a negative identifier, if women are unwilling to just roll over. And so to get back to the topic of what does it, good morning, Dido, welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning. I hope you all will engage in this conversation, because it's an important conversation where I think in many, many cases, women may be more challenged. In terms of activism, I think women might be more inclined to be activists, and there are greater hurdles for us to overcome because of these gender biases within society and how women are perceived. I mean, if we look even at Greta Thunberg, the criticisms that she receives, I think, are steeped in gender bias in so many ways, and we are so immersed in this. It's so pervasive in our culture that we don't even recognize it most of the time. But I notice even in emails, or in a situation where a guy would just charge ahead and be really aggressive, I notice that rather than expressing myself in that way, I will temper my communication. Even, I'm aware I'm tempering it to be nice, right? Women are supposed to smile and be demure, and are supposed to be polite, whereas men can be brash and brazen. A woman who evidences that kind of behavior is open for all kinds of character assassination and diminishment. So what sparked this particular woman to activism was just how horribly egregious the affront was, and there was personal character assassination as part of it, where she was being characterized as disruptive, like, this is interesting, disruptive and aggressive, because if you challenge power, you're disruptive, right? And you, in challenging power, you, as she said, which was pretty powerful, you need to be willing to be slaughtered. You need to be willing to be attacked. And I guess I'm wondering, for all of us, what does it take? How egregious does something have to be before we're willing to fight, before we're willing to step up and fight? And so yesterday we were talking about a moral compass, and how there are violations that we experience in life of our moral compass. And the question is, how bad does it have to be before we actually take action? And this is And when we take action, where do we take action from? Like what place, what frequency, what energy are we taking action from? Are we taking action from vengeance? Or are we taking action from more the perspective of righteous rage? From the perspective of fighting an injustice that, when fought, will serve for a greater betterment, not just a personal betterment, but a collective betterment, perhaps. You know, like on principle. Um, it's a very interesting question, because there's so much that is calling for our attention and our energy in the world, that I think it's important for us to look at what is it going to take to have us take action. And good morning, Serge. Wonderful to have you joining us this morning. We're talking about what does it take to actually take action, to become an activist. So one of the things that I've seen so many people fall into is the trap, the pit of, I'm just one person, I can't do anything about it. And I guess it takes a willingness to step into the fire in order to be able to bring about change. But if you think about David and Goliath, that was just one person. And there are many, many Goliaths. And I think if we, as Davids, band together and support each other in our actions, that it can make a difference. And when we recognize that there is an interconnection of consciousness between all of us, as we move towards taking a stand for the things we believe in, truly being willing to take a stand to support principles of justice and fairness and unity. And as we are willing to stand up for these things, that propagates into the field. So Serge says, we choose to take unconditional love action. Thanks. This is, well, Serge, I think you're speaking something really important, and that is that we come from not come from a place of vengeance, that we not come from a place of tit for tat kind of thing, but that we move into a place of peacefulness, like, and alignment, knowing this is the right thing. And I can't say that what I consider to be the right thing is globally the right thing, but in these circumstances, so often there is a collective feeling that these things, these transgressions, whether they be corporate or interpersonal, that there's just not right, like that it violates a foundational morality. And I don't know really, I'm saying that, I don't know if there really is such a thing as a foundational morality. I tend to believe that there is, that we have a sense of fairness, not that life is fair, not that things unfold in fairness necessarily, but that we have a sense of fairness, and being able to stand for that, to be able to step into action, to elevate the conversation, to elevate the behavior, to say, you know what, this just is not okay. And as I've shared, I'm in a situation of my own that is just simply not okay. And the question becomes, how deeply, I think the question becomes, how deeply does that experience of this is just not okay have to go before we do something? And how do we, when we have that sense of resolve that allows us, that gives, that actually provides us with the momentum, like this wrong needs to be righted, even if it's not for me, but for people in the future. So Serge says we have to acknowledge what is divine because we are spirit and truth. I think that's true in our essence. And there are all different expressions of it as we are here as humans, and we get to interact with those things, those experiences. And yeah, so I've not been one who's typically afraid to take on a fight. And the question is that fight something that is going to serve the greater good? And I guess that's a subjective valuation, but in the circumstance that I was talking about with this discrimination fight, it's going to make a difference for other people. And it creates a template for how to challenge the power structures that hold divisive practices in place. And there is such a such a diseased structure of power in this country, and abuses of power, that when, and power in itself can be a wonderful, wonderful thing. You know, the empowerment, the power of our will, of our being, we can, power can be used in very, very positive ways. And there's such a deep corruption of power in our country that we need to, as individuals, own our power to make change and transformation. And so that's why this question of activism becomes very, very important. Like, what is it going to take? And I'm not talking about activism in terms of self-sacrifice. I'm talking about activism that elevates the issue, that elevates our being, not something that chews us up and spits us out. That's not what we're looking for, because that's activism coming from a level that's kind of perpetuating the problem, right? We want something that is going to empower, something that will elevate the conversation. And it doesn't have to look like martyrdom. Martyrdom is part of the old world construct. And I think that when we fight, it's important to be coming from a place that elevates us rather than that really is the energy of the fight. We need to like come from a higher frequency in order to make true transformation, in order to bring something to the next higher order. And I'm not sure if this is making sense to you, but I think that it's a very important thing for us to be exploring together, to be looking at how can we be spurred to action? How can we honor our sovereignty? How can we honor our voice in the world in a way that is empowering and that can create true elevated transformation? So that's it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to please like and follow the Enlightened World Network and my YouTube channels. The links are in the description. And I am so grateful to you for this opportunity to dialogue and knead through these questions of being and consciousness and humanity. So Serge says, I think unconditional love is the cure for discrimination and division and separation. I'm right there with you, Serge. And the question is, how do we get to that place of unconditional love? Maybe that's conversation for another day. In any case, I so appreciate you and so appreciate the time, your time and your engagement. And so until next time.